to another edition of Big Man on Basketball. It is Monday, February 27th, 2023. We are back. New week, new money, and conference tournaments begin today. March is here as of Wednesday, and it's one of the great months of the 12-month year. We're excited here at Barstool Sportsbook. I'm your host, Jeff Nadu, joined as always on a Monday by Kelly in Vegas. And Kelly, there were several teams that helped themselves over the weekend. There were several teams that hurt themselves over the weekend. There was buzzer beaters. We got conference tournaments starting today. It's a great time to be alive and to be betting every day on the Barstool Sportsbook. How are you? What's up?
Doing good. Had a good weekend, so that was nice. You and Megan talked about a couple of losers in our spaces. Went 3-1 on Saturday, 1-0 yesterday. Colorado about gave me a heart attack. I watched the second half of that Wisconsin Michigan game with my boyfriend. He had Wisconsin, and I'm just like, oh yeah, you guys are cruising. They're about to win outright, and they don't foul. Up 3, get taken to overtime. Some bonehead coaching decisions, but I saw that, and I think even though I didn't have any money or any skin in the game, I had a little PTSD, if you will, and I was like, Colorado, please, 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 please don't do this to me. Ultimately, got the cover there, no overtime. I swear, right now is that last stretch, right before we get to the tournaments, like you said, where we're really starting to see the board well, but you cannot overcome a dog catching 7, losing outright in overtime, or 5.5, 6, whatever that is. That is just such a dagger to your soul. So luckily avoided that crisis yesterday, and even watched a worse collapse in the NBA last night with the Mavs. So right now I'm just kind of being very selective in everything that I'm doing.
I'll admit, I told you on Friday, and I thought I made it clear on Saturday. I thought the best play we've seen possibly in college basketball this year was Gonzaga on Saturday night. Big time play, and they needed that win badly.
Yes, they did.
I'll tell you right now, they are a flip to win the West Coast Conference. I think that's a really good bet. Listen, St. Mary's a good team. I just don't think Gonzaga is a real good matchup for them. And look, you're not going to have the ability to have the game at home. We know how dominant Gonzaga is in Vegas. I think that at like minus 105, that's a really great bet because you have to ask yourself, what is that line going to be in the finale, if that's the finale? So
if they play St. Mary's on a neutral, you mean?
Yeah. It's not going to be.
Yeah, you're probably right. It'll probably be Zags like minus 2.5. So you're right at that. Here's my question in regards to some of these tournaments, because as you mentioned, some of them are starting today, some are starting on Wednesday, Thursday. What are we looking at here in terms of a motivation perspective, right? So like Kansas, Baylor, these teams have won the Big 12 so many times. Do they really care about winning the Big 12?
This is what makes this week very difficult. If you are because you have the confluence of tournaments and you have the confluence of last couple of games. I've made it clear. I think it's really important that you focus really just gambling on teams that there's something to play for. They need something, because there are games tonight where they mean literally nothing. And I've talked to you, and you and I've talked about how do conference tournaments mean that much, quite frankly. Look, I think in the end, you're always, if you're a college, going to give your best effort in conference tournaments. You want to win. You want to be your conference champion. But that said, when you were talking about the big teams, you mentioned Kansas or Baylor. Look, the overall goal is March. But you have to remember, Kelly, too, like seeding is helpful, right? By winning your conference. In the grand scheme of things, the regular season is mostly pointless for a lot of really good teams, and so are the conference tournaments. That said, you still want to do it. You still want to hang a banner. But there's this week where, like tonight for Baylor, right?
Yeah.
Let's say they lose to Oklahoma State. Is it –
No.
It's going to do much? No. I mean, listen, the game – for me, I think right now you need to concentrate on the teams that need to win, maybe improve seeding. And we'll kind of go over that tonight. But I wanted to talk about quickly what teams helped themselves this weekend and what teams did not help themselves. You look at a team that did help themselves, North Carolina, okay?
Yes, they did.
They needed a quad 1 win. They got a quad 1 win. That said, now you got to go on the road and take on Florida State, who, look, for most of the season has been pretty bad. But what a win. You talk about comebacks. What a win for them over the weekend against the Miami Hurricanes. That said, as you know, Miami is still very good. I don't have any issue with them. So it's like that's where I'm looking. a team that hurt themselves, Kelly. Penn State.
Oh,
You're on the bubble squarely. And to me, yesterday, they were a last four in team. Now they're a first four out team. And Lenardi confirmed that. That was a hideous loss. They were up 19 with, I believe, 18 and a half to go. And they lose the game at home against Rutgers. Didn't seem like they could make a shot over the last 5 minutes of the game. They killed themselves.
Yeah, I'd have to wonder. Mississippi State, you could argue, did the exact opposite of Penn State or the same as North Carolina. Are they going to get in? I mean, it was just a month and a half ago. You and I were like, this is the worst team in the SEC. I am not wanting to touch them. And they've slowly started to be a little bit more cohesive and actually play sound basketball.
Well, this is the thing, though, about Mississippi State. Like, they're still not a great team because that conference is so good. But also, when you look at that spot for them on Saturday, you and I talked about it. Again, it fits that bill of unranked versus ranked, right? In their building. There was times where they could not score the basketball. And like the first 5 minutes, second half, I think they went down 7 or 8. And I'm just thinking, I mean, this is just the same old stuff.
Here we go again. Can't hit a three to save their lives. Trust me, I had them. I laid the one against Megan. We did the spaces, and she immediately was like, these two assholes are going to be against. I mean, she called us out right away because she knows that those situational spots, I didn't take Oklahoma State, and we'll talk about why when we go over that game, but I did take the other three. And that's because not only situationally did it fit, the handicap worked itself out as well. I thought Mississippi State, being on the bubble, had an opportunity with a marquee win over a team that had covered 7 straight. It ended up working out this time. But yeah,
they're in at this point.
They're definitely in as of now.
I have them in, and I think Lenardi does as well. Listen, 2 teams that killed themselves this weekend. New Mexico, lose like that at home. You just can't do it. And who was the other team?
Just out of curiosity. So I had Texas Tech.
That was Texas Tech. That was.
I was going to say, do you think that loss got them out? Now, I'll be really honest with you guys. I don't really look at brackets. I know Jeff does a really good job with that. So I'd rather just ask Jeff who's in his bracket than try to rack my own brain.
I didn't have them in.
Okay.
Before that game. Now, you win that game, you're closer to it. Look, at one point we have to remember, like a week or two ago, they had 2 wins in this conference. Okay.
Yeah.
They come on strong late. That's a death nail to them, especially in a game where they essentially were winning the entire time. That's just a hard way to lose, man. I had TC or Texas Tech. You had them, I believe, as well.
Yeah.
That was a gut punch to lose that game because I thought they were really solid. They were in a great spot at home. I'll always continue to say I just don't think you can call fouls under 5 seconds. I think that's a weak way to do things if you're an official. And we saw it in that game. Kid went up, made some free throws, but that said, that's a tough way to lose. So, yeah, I mean, teams hurt themselves. And, look, you're going to hear tonight, I'll bring it up, Oklahoma State, okay, they are desperate. Do
you think they get in with a marquee win over Baylor tonight?
I have them in right now.
Oh, you already have them in. Okay.
I have them in, yes. Now, I think they are teeter-tottering, right? They're, if they lose tonight, I don't think it hurts them much, but this helps them significantly if they win the game. Okay. And this is a spot where let's just get into it. Let's get into the card tonight. But I want to make it clear. I think just because you need to win or you're desperate to win or you got to win doesn't mean you're going to win. I remember many years ago, Teddy Covers, Teddy.
Yeah.
Teddy made a comment about just kind of simplifying why a team is on the bubble. And when you think about it, he kind of essentially said, they're not that good. That's why they're on the bubble. You're not on the bubble if you're like a really good team. You're on the bubble because you're a floundering.
Because you're a mediocre team. You're not the top 68.
Right.
And you may get the opportunity if somebody else falters to get in.
Exactly. And that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with teams that are not easy to back. You're dealing with teams that, are Jekyll and Hyde. There'll be nights like Oklahoma State. How many times have they looked really good this year? Then they look really bad. There
was a few,
They blow leads. This is just how certain teams are. Clemson at one point. Clemson was really good.
Yeah.
They had just fell out like the last month. So, all right, let's get into
outside of that Syracuse game that I had them written down and didn't end up playing because I'm like, I can't trust this team. I mean, we're talking about this like you and I work our asses off. No days off, Nadu. Like, I want to put my hard-earned money on teams that deserve it. Every once in a while, you're going to see me step in some shit like West Virginia on Saturday. But it was a situational spot. It was too many points, whatever. But now you're asking me to lay points with this team that has just been disgusting as of late. It's very hard to do.
I will say one play I had yesterday. I played Drake yesterday.
Okay.
I'll admit, pretty disappointing. I thought they just were so good in the first matchup against Bradley. I'll give Bradley some credit, though. They shot the ball really well, and they were able to get the job done. I will say, though, Kelly, one play that I did lay yesterday, I went back to the well with UCF, and I'll tell you what, that Tulsa team sucks.
I wish I would have known that you were on UCF because I was sitting there. The one game had just ended that we were watching, and it was like up next, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, I wonder if Nadu's on UCF, and I was like, nah, I'm just gonna stay off. Tulsa sucks, but this is a lot of points. Obliterated. I mean, it was so bad that I started cleaning the house during like the mid of the game because it wasn't even exciting anymore.
I thought at one point they were going to go single digits first half. They ended up getting to 14 in the first half, but yeah, it was one of those games where it was 23-7, then it was 32-14, and they just
the next time I looked, it was like 52-21 or something. Yes. It was just out of the water.
Yeah, Tulsa's bad, man. That's
like you said, every time I looked up at the TV, there he was. Mm-hmm. So
I'm telling you guys,
he breaks that team.
This is like, I think why, it's important that you kind of realize, and I'll tell you what, UCF, let me give you a point before we get into tonight's card on UCF. Conference play tournaments coming up. Look into Johnny Dawkins. He is one of the best neutral court coaches, ATS, like in current college basketball. He is very good in those roles. I'll tell you, if there's a team outside of Memphis that I like, to go up against Houston, it's UCF. They have had some tough times going, but like I said, Durr back. He's very important to what they do on both ends. They're healthy.
But they're not getting in, right? They have no shot of getting in.
No, not from a non-conference standpoint.
So this is kind of what I wonder situationally, right? Their season's over. Why not go out there and play a tough game in the AAC Conference Championship against a really good Houston team, and then you have something to almost build on for the next year?
Well, remember, I mean, here's the thing. The one difference that they do have one saving grace. If they win the American, which it's not going to be easy, but they win the American, they're in. That's the only way they can get in. Okay, remember. They're not at large. They're not getting it at large. So, yeah, they're going to have to win the AAC. But I think if there's one team, it's them. So, someone says, where's Rico? Guys, listen.
Rico's never been on the show.
Yeah, I know reading's tough for some of you guys. He'll be on tomorrow. Okay, clearly stated.
Rico's coming on tomorrow?
Yeah.
Whoa.
It clearly stated in the tweet Tuesday, guys. Please, I know reading
is really hard. I mean,
for some of you, it's tough.
It's just like the guy that tweeted me, like, what's with all this UCLA hate lately? I'm like, well, I pushed against Utah, and this is their back-to-back road games, which is tough to do and tough to win in in the Pac-12, and here we are. Sorry.
Well, it's like on my YouTube channel. I post like when I'm doing like interviews and stuff, and I have this huge interview with this mafia guy who no one's ever spoken to tomorrow coming out, and I post in large letters on the post. Shows at 3 on Tuesday. You get like 4 or 5 people that reach out. Hey, what time's the show coming out on Tuesday? It's like, guys, listen. I know reading stuff. You want to scan over stuff, but just read. All of your questions will be answered. Let's get into the games tonight. We're not going to really start time-wise. I'm just going to go through games. I don't really care about time. I don't really look at time. Let's start out with this game because we talked about Okie State. Okay, squarely on the bubble. Okay, this is an animal in a corner type of game where you are being, sought out. You're desperate. It's desperation spot. They have to have this game. Now, that said, Oklahoma State has looked markedly different without Avery Anderson on both ends. I think defensively, the bottom is completely fallen out for this group. And I know I was talking, I know Jim Root and we've talked about the Big 12, and I've heard them talk about just how bad Oklahoma State's defense has been over the last 4 games. And when you look at these numbers, I mean, 87, 100, 85, and 73 they've allowed. Not good. I mean, that's over 80 points a game you're allowing. And offensively, he's one of their better players. So that's a big loss. That said, Baylor's not going to have Keontae George tonight. Now, I think they played against Texas. They just kind of played with emotion and just adrenaline. But now you have a game where you know he's not going to be in there. And I'm always it's kind of I liken it to like when a team either fires a manager or is keeping a manager around for too long in baseball. Once you see them fire a manager, either gets them going or it hurts the clubhouse.
Right.
I think knowing that he's not going to be out there, obviously you lose him as a defender. He's a good home ball defender, and he is a good shot creator. He was very helpful in the first game these two teams played. This is a good spot for Okie State. They're at home. We've seen these spots before, right, Kelly? Unranked against ranked. I don't think Baylor losing this game, it doesn't mean really anything, quite frankly. I think Oklahoma State gets the job done. I think they hit some jump shots tonight, honestly. I really do. I think they win the game tonight.
So here's my problem. I made the game 2.5, Baylor, okay? And that's with Keontae George out. So it opens 1.5 yesterday evening, like 6 o'clock. I'm texting my buddy, Baylor grad, and he usually gives it to me straight, kind of like I give him K-State straight. Baylor has not been great on the road. And now they're missing a key player. I don't trust Oklahoma State. And this was not a fan thing, Jeff, on Saturday. I did not bet against Kansas State. It's because I did not trust Oklahoma State. I'm going to go back over a couple of things, just like you mentioned, the last 4 games. They've on a 4-game losing streak. I took Oklahoma State against Kansas and TCU, if you guys remember, both ugly. That being said, over the last 4 games, 10 points worse on defense, adjusted efficiency. They're shooting less than 30% from three-point land. They just aren't getting the boards that they usually get. As you mentioned, they've been turning the ball over 3 percentage points higher. This team is beating themselves, and that's why I do not think I can get involved with them. I think this looks like a quintessential Kelly in Vegas type bet on spot. That's why you said you liked Oklahoma State. I know a lot of sharp guys like Oklahoma State. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't trust either team here. What I think the best spot for me to do, and this is all advice from you over the last 6 weeks we've been doing the show, I'm going to look for a spot live, or I'm going to look at the second half. I want to see how cohesive, how soon, I didn't get to watch all that Baylor-Texas game. How soon did Keontae George get hurt? Wasn't it pretty early on in the game?
Yeah, he only played I think 5 or 6 minutes. I mean, they played virtually the whole game without him. And look, you got to give them credit. I mean, they played, very well and won the game. That said, I kind of want to, one of the things I like to do is always look at the second meeting and see what we see different than we probably saw in the first. I am playing Oak State, and here's the difference. You look at the first time they played here. Baylor had everybody healthy, okay?
Correct.
Oklahoma State didn't have Cisse, okay? They have him tonight. That's helpful. You also look at George in that game. George only had 8 points, but he had 6 boards and 5 assists. He approached triple-double status if he, just did a bit better. He was very good in the game. You also look at Oklahoma State, okay? They only had 8 free throws in the entire game compared to 22 for Baylor, and they were 7 for 33 from 3. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and probably say the one bet you have tonight is they go better than 21% from 3 tonight. At home, throw that in. You don't have George. Again, I think this is one of those desperate spots where the Cowboys get the job done. And we see a good Cowboys team that isn't going to light up and make 15 threes tonight, though I hope they do. I don't think they do, but I think they're better than they were. I think some of those outlier things are just too hard to go against. So therefore,
I'm completely siding with you. I just don't trust them. It seems like one bad loss to KU at home subsequently has turned into 3 more bad losses. They had K-State on the ropes. I watched almost every second of that game going, damn it, Kelly, you knew to play Oklahoma State. But again, I didn't trust them. And I'm kind of in that notion of right now being very selective and, picking my spots. As I mentioned, I did make Baylor a 2.5-point favorite here. So obviously the line's moving towards Oklahoma State. I'll cheer for you, and hopefully the Cowboys can get the win for you at home.
Okay. Also, someone's saying in the comments, is it senior night? Yes, it is. It's their last home game. Now, this is why I don't like this argument. And this is why I don't like when people mention this. Because, first of all, this is not the game that you only have two kids, right, that are seniors that have
Right.
played their entire career at Oklahoma State. And one of them is injured, I believe. The other kids, Asbury, John Michael Wright, they didn't play their careers at Oklahoma State. I don't know how much it means to them. I'm sure it's great and everything, but especially with senior, I don't care much about it for like these big schools. They're not going to, this isn't their last game they're ever going to play. You know, it's look, if you're a senior and you played your whole career at High Point or something, like, okay, I get it. And let's say you have 3 or 4 starters that are seniors. I think for the first 10, 15 minutes, it's probably helpful for you a little bit, but
Yeah.
I don't think it means much. I think it's a lazy handicapping angle to
Oh,
use.
no, for sure. It's just like when you say revenge. Okay,
Right.
no problem. How do you quantify senior night? Now, I can tell you with absolute certainty that senior night in Manhattan, Kansas is going to draw more people. It's going to be the last game of the year. You want to go out on top. You want to wish your seniors a farewell. I can't tell you right now what the culture is really like in Stillwater. There were a lot of Kansas State fans in Stillwater. And by a lot, I mean a lot more than I've seen in a long time. So where'd they buy their tickets from, right? Are Oklahoma State fans just writing off the season? Maybe, maybe not. Is it a tough place to play? You could argue. Yeah, they get rowdy. I'd give them 3 points for home court advantage. But I kind of have to wonder, is it really going to be that much more rowdy for senior night? Do the fans really care at this point? I don't think so.
Again, I'll say it. I don't think it means much of anything long term. You might get 1 or 2 players to play exponentially better or something, like Toledo, for instance. Toledo rolled on Saturday. I think they had 56 points at the half. You know, that's a team that used senior night because they have 3 or 4 really good seniors. But one other thing you need to know here, guys, probably the only thing that matters, okay? This line opened 1.5 for Baylor. It's now, Oklahoma State, I'm seeing 1 at spots. So this is a big
right now, Oklahoma State just moved from a pick'em to -0.5 at the Barstool Sportsbook. So now it does fit our ranked versus unranked catching points. So Oklahoma State back-to-back games fits the system.
And remember, you have 70% of the bets on Baylor, but 82% of the actual money is on Oklahoma State. This is a quintessential Mississippi State. This is Mississippi State. That's exactly what this game is.
You're right.
All right. Let's get to the next game. And this game, a little more low level, but that's what we do here, and that's what I like to do. Don't let anyone tell you you shouldn't talk about Atlantic Sun, because Kelly, they're getting started tonight. I want to put some confusion away on this tournament. Okay, you've got 2 games tonight starting in this conference. Okay, and this was even confusing, I think, for line people betting these games. This game is a neutral site game. The only teams that play at their home locations are the 1 and 2 seeds, Kennesaw State and Liberty. They play at their home locations. Everyone else plays at Kennesaw tonight. So Queens, Florida Gulf Coast is at Kennesaw. Queens is a new Division I team. They're called the Royals. They're from Charlotte, North Carolina. Here's what you got to know about both these groups. They're both up and down, love playing in transition, shoot threes at a very high rate. If they're making threes at a just average number, this is going to be a pretty high-scoring game. First game, they played 84-82. It was up and down, first to 80 win type of game. They both have dynamic guards. Neither are very good in ball screen defense. And when you look at, I think the difference in this game, at least to me, is the saving grace. And I've heard other college basketball people that I respect say this, and I agree 1,000%. When you get into conference tournaments, I think you have to throw away a lot of what you saw in conference play and just kind of focus on where did you have these teams before the season. And to me, I thought Florida Gulf Coast was an impressive team. Remember, this team went and beat USC out of conference. Okay, they went and, up to St. Bonaventure and beat that team. Okay, those are tough road games for teams like Florida Gulf Coast. Their coach is Pat Chambers, former Penn State coach, Philly guy. They're very, very experienced, very continuity-based, and they have a lot of old kids, a lot of good players on this team. I was surprised to see them catching points here, quite honestly. I also think, again, it's a high-scoring game. I think it's probably first to 80 wins. This is going to be a fun up-and-down game. But just know when you're betting these conference tournaments, where the games are. That's the biggest challenge, I would say, is what conferences have neutral sites, what sites are gyms where, the higher seed plays.
Or the weird sightlines. Here's a good question for you, just because it changes every single year. and especially in the bigger conferences. So this year, the Big 12 tournament's in Kansas City. Because of close proximity to Lawrence, we're talking 20 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on traffic, hour and a half, 2 hours for Manhattan. Mizzou is no longer in that conference, so it doesn't really bode well for them. Iowa State, Ames is only about 3 hours from Kansas City. Just a few things like that. Do you buy into giving a home court advantage whatsoever?
No, I couldn't. I don't. No, I don't.
Okay, no, because I had full intention of looking at the SEC tournament, the Pac-12 tournament's always in Vegas, as you know, and so that's really fun for those teams, and there really is no real advantage because nobody is from that close.
Here's the thing: whether how you want to quantify neutral site games, okay, there's very basic thought here is you got to get on a bus and generally get on a plane and go to it. Okay.
And stay in a hotel. You're not at home.
Right.
You're not sleeping in your own bed.
You're not going. Yeah, it is a tougher thing to do, and every team is on the same level. Remember, though, in the smaller tournaments, the America East or the A-Sun or the Big Sky. I mean, you got to look at like the Big Sky does neutral site the entire time. You know, the America East, it's higher seed, right? So the 1 seed's going to have the home field advantage the whole time. So just knowing where the games are, it's kind of like new non-conference play where there could be a tournament, it could be a neutral, whatever. So one thing I will say, Barstool Sportsbook has Florida Gulf Coast at 40-1 to win this conference tournament. Here's what I'll say. If there's a deep sleeper in this conference, there are 2 teams. It's Florida Gulf Coast and North Alabama, who I've talked about. Florida Gulf Coast avoids Liberty. And I think the number 2 seed Kennesaw is beatable. We've seen teams. Queens beat Kennesaw. North Alabama, it's all about them getting healthy. One of their guards is hurt. I don't know if he's going to play, so that's kind of contingent there. But if Gulf Coast can kind of get past Queens, I think they could be an interesting team to maybe hedge a little bit on. 40-1 is a huge price in a 2 or 3 game series. So.
Yeah, that's ridiculous for a conference tournament. I mean.
Absolutely.
It seems very off price. I just opened the Barstool Sportsbook. I think it might be already off the board, unfortunately. But some really interesting lines up to win the whole thing right now. K-State's still sitting at 50-1. I bet it like 3 weeks ago thinking, okay, they've been on a nice little tear. Nope, doesn't matter. The bookmakers do a really good job with some of these. The most interesting one, really quick, I wanted to ask you about, just because you touched on them, Gonzaga, still 25-1.
To win the entire thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big price. I mean, they're playing very well right now.
Seems very off.
Yeah. By the way, just to clarify, Kennesaw is the number 1 seed, Liberty's 2. That said, really, they're both playing home games. Doesn't really matter, but just wanted to clarify that. But yes, that's a big price, Kelly. Very big. Listen, I've said before, I think with Gonzaga, it's going to be their years this year because no one's really talking about them. Every year they're the best team, they're number 1 team. They're playing really well right now. And if they go into the tournament as the winners of the West Coast Conference after everything, they still won the conference. 25-1 is really good. I'd put it more to like 15-1. I might bet that tonight. I'm starting to really, really fall into this team. They are firing on offense right now. All right, couple of more here. Kelly, Iowa State, West Virginia. 2 teams kind of going in opposite directions. West Virginia, they're playing well. You got to give Huggins credit. This team has really kind of found themselves over the last month or so. Remember that time where they just couldn't win games?
Yeah, they lost like 5 or 6 conference games in a row back in whatever that was, December, January.
Yeah, but they're finding ways to kind of find some wins here. Look, they're not a good team. They only have 5 wins in this conference, but they have a possibility of winning, a couple to end the season and going to the tournament on a high note. I think the issue with West Virginia is, this game virtually doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot. I mean, they're going to have to win the conference. That's all they're going to get in the way they're going to get in. They're not on the bubble. I don't think they have an opportunity to get in the tournament. I guess you win a couple of quad ones here. You have a shot. Who knows? But then again, you look at Iowa State and you say, this team offensively is falling off a cliff, and it's because of injury. Caleb Grill. I've always said if Caleb Grill plays, I think they're a team I want to back. If he doesn't play, I don't want to back them because you have a lot of kids in that team like a Osunashuni who just doesn't score. He's a bad offensive player. He's Ben Wallace. That's what Osunashuni is. He's a great shot
Ben
blocker.
Wallace.
He can rebound a basketball, but he's not going to give you a ton on the offensive end. And when you have 5 players and one can't score, you're really at a disadvantage. It's pretty simple. You talk about live betting with the other game. I think this is worth one where maybe you get Caleb Grill, he plays, then I have some interest, but I don't know. West Virginia is kind of a weird one to me. They already beat Iowa State too, so you got a little revenge here if you're State. But I don't like them offensively right now.
No, and I don't either. And I was really kicking myself. I had Oklahoma on my long list, but I went back to what we talk about with this team, and their home road splits is just ridiculous. They're one of the best home teams and one of the worst road teams. Like, I think they're 12th or 13th in the nation in terms of that. I love the idea of Hilton Magic. I love the idea of a buy low spot here for Iowa State. I don't trust this team. Like you said, they've gone absolutely cold. They put up 55, 54, and 50 in their 3 losses. Since that TCU game, maybe they just can't turn it back on. Is this the night to do it? You've got West Virginia in a weird spot, right? Not only travel, because they obviously either stayed in Kansas City or close proximity to that, but you kind of have to wonder. You've got West Virginia off that really interesting, very close game with Kansas. Then they go to Iowa State. Then they finish up their season with K-State at home. Have they put something together? Maybe, maybe not. This looks like it's probably too many points, but I kind of almost am very, very close to pulling the trigger on Iowa State going, all right, this is a quintessential buy low spot. Hold your nose. It's gross. The Mountaineers left everything on the court in Lawrence. I mean, if you watch that game, it was awesome. They had a shot to win it, which I would have never projected. I just thought, hey, 10 points is way too many here. And in fact, I thought 6.5 was way too many. But I said, wait, because we knew the line was only going to go one way. This one's interesting. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think probably a live spot here might be better if Iowa State gets down early.
Someone says Mike Lenardi has West Virginia in. Yeah, that's good for him. I don't think they should be in the field currently, but he does. I mean, look, they could be in. Again, I do my own bracket. I mean, I don't believe they're in the field personally, but he has them in. And again, I guess his opinion means more.
How many Big 12 teams do you have in, Jeff?
I think I have 7.
Yeah, that was kind of what I had written down. Like, are we going to see 6, 7 in there? And so you kind of have to wonder, is West Virginia, as he said, Lenardi has them in. Does he have them in because of what a gauntlet the Big 12's been, and he's giving them a little credit for that? Kind of have to wonder. They're going to need to beat Iowa State tonight and Kansas State this weekend, and we'll see if they can get it done.
I mean, he doesn't have Texas Tech in, but he has West Virginia in. They both have the same amount of wins in the conference.
West Virginia does have that road win in Lubbock. I guess if you want to call it a tiebreaker, if you will.
Yeah, but we've heard the committee say they don't care as much about conference play. So it's like, I don't know. Who knows? Either way, I don't think it means that much in the grand scheme of March because these teams generally don't do that much. We spent a lot of time talking about them. So, yeah, I would see what we have with Grill tonight. I think he's obviously most important to how you handicap this game and go from there. All right. Would I take Eastern? Please, this guy's saying, please help me out in capital letters. Are you in captivity and you have to get a play on this game or you're going to be killed or something? You're acting like you're
the all caps text always gets me.
Yeah, please help me out. It's like, are you in trouble here or what? That said, you're asking me about Eastern Washington, Montana State. Okay, look, this is the last game of the season for these two teams. I don't think I would bet this game. I don't think it means anything at all to these teams. These teams are ready to get to conference play in the tournament, and that's about to start. So I think it's a fun game. These are two really good teams, the two best teams in the Big Sky, good offensive groups. But I don't think it means a whole lot. I think this is a game that I would probably have, as far as tonight and playing, it would probably be towards the low level on my list. So yeah, I wouldn't play this game personally. I don't think it means anything. All right, final game. Nevada against Wyoming. Kelly, don't look now, but we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Nevada is tied with 3 other teams as the second best team in the entire country against the spread. They're 18-8, and I'll continue to hammer home. Why is that, Kelly? I'll tell you why. They're second in American free throw percentage. You look at laying points this season. They've laid points 17 times. 14-3 against the spread as a favorite. Why? Because they make free throws. There is a very simple to understand metric that if you make free throws, you're likely going to be very good against the spread. And we've talked about that. I had a team on Saturday, a group I love against the spread. Fullerton. They're not as great against the spread from the free throw line, but they're a team that when I kind of talk about teams I like backing, it's either good free throw teams or just good offensive teams that play great defense. That's Fullerton. So I think there's a lot of things. They're playing well right now. There's a lot of things you want to look at, but the one thing that Nevada does well is they make free throws. This offense is really good. Don't look now. I think they can win this conference. This is a great team. They're big. They're strong. And I said with Wyoming, I just don't think this team's very good. I think they've lost 6 of 7. 5 have come by 10 or more points. They're just not real good. They only have, I think, 7 kids that can play right now. They have the home game here, which is helpful. It's a little bit tougher to go there, but do I want to go against Nevada? No.
I don't want to go against them at home. And I've been saying that. I'm not betting against this team at home. I stepped in front of them at Fresno State. Fresno State did everything they did to not only not cover, but to lose that game. They were shooting up things like my 5-year-old nephew would do when you got the basketball hoop at the end of the cul-de-sac, like just launching ridiculous shots. And I was like, don't break your TV. It's not worth it. But in all seriousness, I'm going to take Wyoming tonight. And I know it's gross, but look, let's look. This one opened 6.5 down to 5.5. So somebody agrees with me, which I appreciate. The biggest caveat here is I do think what we're going to see is that back-to-back road game scenario. We know how tough that is. And yes, Wyoming has been atrocious. They have been. But they don't really get blown out. That Colorado State game was on the road, but at home, they don't really get blown out. Yes, they lost by 10 to Utah State. They lost to Air Force at home.
6 of the last 7, they've lost by 6 or more, though. Listen, I hear what you're saying. And I was wrestling with this game because something tells me it's kind of a low spot. It's off of a road game at Fresno, which, look, Fresno's tough. That's a tough place to play. They're a decent defensive team. I hear where you're going here. Wyoming is.
Do you want to know what the dagger really was? Not only the reverse line, but it's because they play UNLV next. And living in Las Vegas for all those years, these two teams hate each other. It is such a look-ahead spot every year for Nevada. And I wish I had long-term data to say, okay, how do they fare playing the week before or the game before UNLV? And I don't. I texted a couple people. I said, tell me you've got something on this. It's just something that I've seen year in and year out. Whatever reason, those two teams, it just gets dicey. Now, if they had, let's just say, beaten UNLV in Las Vegas, maybe I would say, all right, let's throw this out. But they lost in a pretty close game, 68-62 in Las Vegas. So now they've just got to get this last pesky road team out of the way named Wyoming, and then they can go get their revenge against in-state rival. I think it's just one of those flat spots.
I mean, you got Stones to do it because they're so good against the spread. But here's what I will say. I mean, Wyoming has really been good against Nevada over the last, let's just say, 5 games. I think they've won all 5. It's a tough matchup for them. I just have a hard time with Wyoming. I just don't think they're very good.
I know. It's gross. And sometimes when teams don't pass the eye test, it's okay to pass.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what I do here. If I like Nevada, maybe just like a money line parlay with another team, like Iowa State or something. I don't know. But I'll root you in, Kelly. Good luck.
Yeah, and I'm going to be cheering for you in terms of Oklahoma State. It's the same thing for me as why you can't bet against Nevada right now. I can't bet on Oklahoma State. They are just not playing well enough. And it's an unfortunate thing because it is that total spot I would normally love to back.
Michigan 300 to 1 to win a title. Is that a decent play? No. I don't have them in the field. And if you don't get into the field, you can't win the NCAA tournament. It's pretty simple. That's not to say, I mean, they have opportunities. They have Indiana and Illinois, I believe, to end the season. Both on the road, not easy. Look, Marty Mush made the comment, like, I will say about Marty, like, I feel like he's had to be like an apologist all year for Hunter Dickinson. I don't really get it. Like, he continues to have to try to sell us that Hunter Dickinson's good, and it's like, we know he is. That said, he's brought the negative opinions of him on himself by his behavior, which I get what he's doing. I've said before, I think it's great that he has a show and can talk about this stuff. I love what he does, but that's why he gets shit. It's the same reason I get shit. There are certain people at Barstool that can't do anything wrong, but I do certain things and people don't like it because I'm an abrasive individual. I get it. I bring it on myself. That said,
Jeff, I have to ask, because
Yeah.
I'm abrasive as well, right? Like I'm a nice girl from Kansas until I'm not. When you were in school, what was your relationship with teachers?
Oh, I didn't respect them at all.
Yeah,
I know
no, me
everything.
neither, obviously. But I just mean, did you have teachers that really liked you and teachers that really
I
hated
had
you?
several teachers that I still, in fact, I have a teacher in high school I still speak to today.
Me too.
Yeah.
The principal of Manhattan High School was my math teacher, and to this day, he's like, I use you as an example all the time. But yet, the guy right across the hall from that teacher hated me.
And I haven't worked many real jobs. Like, I've had bosses that I just didn't respect, I didn't care about. And then there's one or two that I remember, and I still speak to them today.
Yeah.
Like, they taught me a lot about, like, things.
So I don't think it's an abrasive thing. I think it's when you're a certain type of person, people either love you or they hate you, and there's no in between.
No,
So
you're so right.
the people that hate you are going to think you're abrasive and are going to think you're wrong.
I can't say I've ever met, at least doing this, I think it's either people hate me or like me, right? There's no in between. It's not like, oh, I kind of like it. No, I either like them or I don't, right? And I think that's the same with Hunter Dickinson. Like, I think if you're a fan of like someone like me who doesn't have a favorite team, or you go to Michigan, I love Hunter. I think it's cool that he does what he does, because all we hear is people bitch and complain that athletes don't say enough. Then he comes out and says stuff, and it's, oh, shut the fuck up, mother. I like the kid. I think he's a good player. That said, if you go to Wisconsin or Illinois or Indiana,
But it's the same thing with Zach Edey. Zach Edey didn't do anything wrong, but if you have to play Purdue twice a year, you're going to hate him.
Sure, absolutely, and that's the thing with Hunter. But if you're a basketball fan, he's a great player. Everybody knows that. You just hate on him because you don't like him because he goes to another school. But on this question, no, I don't think they're in the field. They could get in the field. We've seen them make runs in March, but I didn't love their guard play all year. I think defensively they aren't great. So for me, I'm out on that. I don't think they'll make the field. So I think it's you in a week could have a piece of paper that's
worthless. But here's I'll play the flip side just to play contrarian. All right, Michael, let's say you're a Michigan fan, right? And they beat Illinois and they beat Indiana and they make a hell of a run in the Big Ten, tournament. Let's say they take second and they lose to Purdue, right? Are you going to get them in? Do you think they're going to get in then? What would it take for you to put them in?
Well, I think here's the thing. I think if they go out like Thursday and beat Illinois, I think you can make a case that they're in the field. I have them as I think the 6th team out, so they're not.
So I guess what Michael maybe is saying, and he can chime in the comment section, is if he's a fan and you think you're going to win the next 2 games, which let me look and see, you're going to be dogs in both, right? And then you're going to be a dog probably starting in the 2nd round of the Big Ten tournament. It's a longer shot. That's why they're 300-1. But I don't see them being an Elite 8 team. That's the problem. Just because they get in.
I hear what you're saying, but here's what I would do. Like, I would much rather just play, and this is the same level of a team because, like, Oral Roberts, for instance, okay? Oral Roberts is a team that's going to have to win their conference to get into the NCAA tournament. Okay. I think that's much more likely to happen. And I think they can win a few games and they have a much better shot of getting into the tournament over Michigan. I don't think Oral Roberts loses in conference to anyone. I think they're just better than everyone else. So, and they're 350-1. So it's like, well, I might as well just rather play a team like that. But anytime you play like these types of teams, whether it's Michigan or Florida or Oklahoma, or you looking like a Mississippi State, that's an interesting team. you're really just at the hands of the committee, quite frankly. So
yeah, I think Michael is a fan and he wants to jump in early. He's a little wrong. I don't think if they make it, they'll be down to 100-1 unless they took a significant amount of money. But I do think, yes, of course, if they win the next 2 games as underdogs and they perform well in the Big Ten tournament, sometimes when you have those bigger schools with a ton of money, Jeff, they let them in regardless if they necessarily deserve to be there or not.
Thank you, James. Appreciate that. By the way, if you love Jeff Nadu, put a 1 in the chat right now. I think if you're here,
what about for your haters? Are they supposed to put a 2 or you just want the silence?
Yeah, they could put a 2.
Okay.
By the way, a programming note, Kelly, you'll be back with us what day?
So I'm back Wednesday.
Okay.
I can also be back Friday. And
okay.
then I am going to Napa next week with my couple of girlfriends. It should be a really great time. And I would say normally I do the show, but I have a feeling by 2 p.m. West Coast, no, it'll be 1 p.m. West Coast, I will be already slightly intoxicated. And we do not condone that type of behavior at the Barstool Sportsbook. So I politely told you I'd like to have the day off.
That's fine. That said, so you'll be with us several more times this week. And like I said, Rico Bosco will join the show tomorrow. And listen, guys,
I love that.
Rico's not going to make the rules. This is my show. We're not going to do this stupid. Rico feels like he knows. And look, he may know more about basketball on the court than me, but he also, I've noticed, is one of those people that he thinks if you don't play basketball or haven't played basketball before, you shouldn't speak about basketball. We all played basketball as kids. Everybody does. But yeah, he's not going to rule the show tomorrow. I am. It's my show.
It's your show.
Right. Speaking of drinking, though, I'm not saying this like I'm not making a story up here, okay? But on Saturday night, I got probably the drunkest I've ever been before. And it was ever. And I
drinking.
Listen, I'll say this. It was around 3:00 in the morning, 3:30, and I came home and it was the first time like I got this notion that I kind of regretted doing it because it was one of those drunk feelings where I didn't even want to be drunk anymore. I was just like kind of like, why am I so drunk? Like this is not good. It was the first time I think ever where I wondered, did I pay the tab? Did I tip? Like it was.
Oh, did you have the next day like anxiety, regret kind of
deal? Luckily, I'm very cool with them there, and they were like, yeah, you paid, everything's fine. But I was just in a weird spot, like a weird way. And what happened was
you just browned out. You didn't black out. You have memories, but you just have missing memories.
No, I didn't black out. I got home. I knew where I was. Like I took I did everything I needed to do, and I fell asleep, and everything was fine. But I got to a weird spot, and I want to talk about the goddamn motherfuckers that were Barstool fans that came. They were Yak fans. Okay, I think 2 or 3 of them. One of them bought me Patron once. Another guy bought me a Patron. And I got a couple other. It wasn't good, man. It was bad. But
that was really nice of them.
No.
It was a nice gesture, but in the next day, you were kind of like, fuck you guys. I feel like shit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they were cool. But the cool thing about me, like for the most part, is I don't really get hungover, knock on wood. I
had 3 margaritas on Saturday night. I went out with my girlfriend and her husband, casual dinner. We had plenty of food, apps. I had 3. I was miserable till about noon yesterday. Is this what getting old is like? Because this is not where I want to be.
Listen, there's one key, and this is a pro move by Nadu. This is what I do. On Saturdays, I eat. I don't eat lunch really ever. It's not my thing. So I only eat once a day. But on Saturdays, I know I'm going to drink. So what I do is when I get when I order dinner, like I order a steak or whatever, I always make sure I get something to eat when I come home. The key, you have to eat something when you come home from the bar. It's very, very important. And I'm not saying don't eat.
I'm like, don't eat any more calories. You've already drank all your calories.
It's okay. You're doing it anyway. It's not a problem if you do it once a week. But there's a key here. Okay. And most people are going to say, oh, I'll eat McDonald's. No, you can't eat McDonald's.
Ugh.
You can't. You got to eat something like somewhat healthy,
like has some substance.
Like for instance, I'll get like eggs or something like that. Eggs, whole wheat toast, stuff like that. That's the key, I think, to not getting hungover. Now that said, as I get older and older, might be different, but
I think two things for me. Oh, congratulations, Julian. That's awesome.
yeah, good for you.
I
I
love
had a
that.
10-year run with no alcohol, and
That's
you know,
just I think I'm just such a social drinker because I don't do anything else. Like
yeah,
I like dinner, even last night, even though I felt like crap until about noon, go get Italian food. I'm like, well, gotta have a glass of wine. Ooh, that's
yeah,
really good wine. Better have that second one. But
yeah.
I'm to the point now where you mentioned shots. I've had several people out. I don't do shots. We were at the Big 12 championship game. I was obliterated because I got no sleep and started drinking high noon at 6 a.m. The last thing I needed that day was shots. So I told everybody no. And so many people were like so offended by me. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I have to get on a plane to Baltimore and then do this all over again the next day and then fly home. I am not doing shots. So I think the biggest thing for me is avoiding the high concentration of alcohol in a very small period of time.
Yeah, I mean, when you're drinking, like most people, if they're like out, like when you said you're out having dinner and you're drinking wine, like you're not going to get drunk doing that because you're eating and stuff. But like when I go out and drink a lot of the time, I'll eat dinner at like 6 o'clock and I won't go out until like 10:30. So by then it's like,
your stomach's empty.
yeah. So it's like, you know, it's not great. So yeah, I was in a weird way, man. But I think that's the important thing. Like I never want to get drunk to the point where like I don't know where I am, because I think if you ever meet me in person, you'll see this. I'm very paranoid about, like, I need to know where I wouldn't want to like not lock my door or something, or like I don't want to ever get to that point, because it's like I think that's when you have real problems, when you're like,
yeah, like me in college, and my roommate comes home after work at 2 a.m. and the door's wide open and the smoke detector's going off, and like I'm passed out on the living room floor. Yeah, like those type of moments. Like,
yeah, I don't
you
want
didn't drink during that time, but that's why when you're like the drunkest I've ever been, I'm like, yo, I don't know how I'm alive. College was a really fun 5 years.
I got to the point, Kelly, that on Saturday where like there's this place I go, they have like little areas where like you can sit, it's like VIP, you get a bottle, whatever.
Yeah.
And, like I was sitting in there with two of the kids that I know, and I got to the point where like I didn't know where I was. Like it was really bad. Like, I was looking at like it was just bad. I don't want to relive it.
Yeah, because as a female, we're taught all these things growing up. Like,
Yeah.
make sure you know your all these things. But like as a guy, I would be worried about getting robbed. I mean, you went out in the city, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Like, so you're out in the city, like you get too drunk, some girl steals your wallet, steals your car. Like, you never know what's going to happen. You see it every day in Vegas, every single day.
I'm a pro at that.
Yeah.
In my town, that'll never happen.
Okay.
You might have some kids fighting or something, but no. And the good thing for me is like I get the Uber to pull right up, you get in, you go home. Like but my whole thing is like I just want to know where I am. I want to make sure I get in my house. I want to make sure I, do everything I got to do, and just as long as I get to the bed, I'm good.
Like not make mac and cheese at 1 o'clock in the morning, burn it to the pan, smoke.
No.
These are all things that have happened to me. And my poor college roommate, man, she was a great babysitter. And I returned the favor. One night I came home, she was in the Christmas tree. Do you remember the walkie-talkie phones from Sprint? The Nextels?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had many of them.
And you could send each other the message and it would like hold. And I get home and I can't find her anywhere. And I'm like yelling for her. I know she's there. Her car's out front. And I hear, and I was like, where are you? And I look over, she's in the Christmas tree. She goes, I already told you I was in the fucking Christmas tree. She's all mad at me. I'm like pulling her out of the Christmas tree. I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, I told you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. I just got home. Well, she did the Nextel thing and told me, but didn't actually tell me that it happened. And I mean, these are like girls in college. Like I'm very, very, very glad that smartphones did not exist. That the worst thing that could have ever happened to me was a grainy picture on a Nextel.
No, I know. It was a different time back then. But I remember in high school, I was the phone king. I had the I-860. I had a sidekick. I was the phone king.
Sidekick. I did not have a sidekick, but I did have the Nokia.
The sidekick is to me still the GOAT phone ever. I love that phone.
Just because you could flip it and have a whole keyboard.
You went out to the mall, you flipped the joint open, and girl sees that, it's over.
It's over. It's like the first one in high school to get girls.
Man, I was definitely look. I still have two phones to this day.
You got to have a slut phone. I always tell guys that.
Yeah.
Like, You got to give a real phone number and a fake phone number, at least when you're in Vegas. Like, just get it, and that way you don't get in any trouble.
That's how you know you're either a drug dealer or you're just how to cover your tracks. You have two phones.
You got to be careful.
Yeah, though the Razor. I had a Razor. I had a Razor at one point.
I had a purple one.
That was almost yeah. It was after the that was after Nextel Razors.
Yeah, I think I got the Nextel in high school for like Christmas, but I think I had it for like a year or two in college. And then I think when I got to upgrade, I think I got the Razor or something like that. And then I remember when I moved to Vegas, I got a BlackBerry.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
I had the level of phones. It was the Nextels, then it was Razors, then it was BlackBerry. I had a the actual blue BlackBerry. That was the original one. Then you had like the Storm and the different ones. And yeah, I was weird with phones, man. I got a lot of trouble with phones. My father, I put a lot because my father and I have the same name. I used to go to the mall and put it in his name. And
oh no, I have a buddy like that because there's a lot of Hispanic people that have the same name, right? They may be like a third last name or another middle name. And my boy Ricardo got in a lot of trouble with that in Vegas. We'll leave it at that.
Well, real quick before we go, a sidekick story. I went to the mall one time, and you know those goofy like salesmen that are like in the middle of the mall, and they're like, "Yo, come," they're like trying to hawk you and shit,
like lotion and jewelry and God knows what. Yeah.
Well, they had a T-Mobile prepaid thing, and then they had the T-Mobile contract. And back then, T-Mobile was super easy to get. So I got this bright idea one time to use my father's information to get a phone plan with T-Mobile. I wanted this sidekick, and I got the bumpers that were black and white. This phone was fat. Like, it was awesome. So I get the phone, I do everything, and I come down to dinner one night. I'm playing on the phone. My dad's like, "That's a nice phone." He was, "Where do you get that phone at?" I said, "Oh, it's a prepaid." I said, "A friend of mine got me it, just playing it off." And my dad's smart with shit, because when I was a kid, he did it like the mafia did it, where like the mafia don't tell you they're going to kill you. They just shoot you in the back of the head twice. He did the same thing. He would be cool and act like everything was fine. He'd be like,
so he already knew you did it.
Oh, he knew it already. He's like, "That's a nice phone." And
then let you lie.
Yeah, he goes, "That's a nice phone." He goes, "Let me see it." I want to sit and play around with it. No bullshit. He fucking breaks it in half right at the fucking table. I said, I was like, "What the?" I said, I'm thinking, man, what the fuck?
How old were you? Like 16?
Yeah, like junior in high school, 16, 17. And he pulls the bill over and is like, "What's up? You didn't pay the bill for 3 months. How'd you know my last four, my social, all this stuff?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just figured it out." Like I got it. I think I got it from my mom or something. But yeah. And I remember he made me work because my dad.
He didn't whoop your ass?
No. My parents never did that. My dad's punishment was he knew I didn't like manual labor. I don't want to go. And that's what my dad would do. Like if we did something stupid, he would make us work over, like, let's say we had a break or like several days off from school. He would make me work for free at work. Like, or in the summer, he'd be like, "All right, 2 weeks in the summer, you're going to work for free, carrying block and mixing cement and shit like that." And
yikes.
That was my punishment. So.
That's funny. I had to run to the mall today to grab something, and I just popped in Williams and Sonoma because you're not supposed to wash wooden spoons, just like you don't wash certain cookware, right, guys?
Not, yes.
Anyway, somebody washed my wooden spoon, go figure. So I was like, I'm going to buy myself a new one. And for about 10 seconds, I had a little PTSD when I was picking out which one I wanted. And I was like, damn, because my mom, was her weapon of choice. Just a whack right there in the kitchen.
I remember a couple times being hit by my father. And that was when I did some really bad shit, and I remember my dad at church, when we go to mass and we would do something stupid, he'd kind of move over to where I was and he'd be like, "Come here, I got to tell you something." He'd grab me close and he'd fucking like, and no one, he would like smile, be like, and he, and I you remember those times. I remember a couple of times being cupped.
I think it was like not even, I think it was sometime this football season. And I was joking with my niece's dad. It's my boyfriend's brother. So they're not really related to me, but I'm their godmother. And I literally said, and I tweeted it, I go, "These girls have never had their ass beat in church and it shows." Mm-hmm. And he's like, "I know, I can't do it." And I'm like, "You have to." Like, it's not all the kids, right? But like, I was one of the kids, You put me in timeout. I didn't give a shit. You grounded me. I didn't give a shit. You knocked me upside the back of the head. I might start paying attention.
That's one of the biggest problems today with the youth. Let's just say 16 to 25. They were not disciplined. Okay. They were babied. You're not allowed to hit your kids anymore. And I was not part of that. Now, my parents didn't beat me or nothing.
No, of course not.
But I remember like the 2 or 3 times where I was disciplined badly, where you wait till your father gets home. And I remember hearing his truck, coming down the road. And I thought, all right, in little T-3 minutes, I'm fucked.
Oh, well, that was the worst. And so my parents were divorced by the time I was in like 3rd grade. So there was almost like the anxiety that my mom gave me, like, was she going to tell my dad this time or not? Because like, one of the guys saying like, oh, my sister laughed when her mom spanked her. Yeah, me too. I'd be like, whatever, what are you going to do? That's when the wooden spoon started coming out, because she's like, oh, you're going to laugh now. You have a welt on your forearm because you're running your mouth.
Yep.
And it is interesting because you aren't seeing that anymore. But like one of my nieces, all it takes is me to say something to her and she is like, whoop. The other ones, they're like, yeah, right, Aunt Kelly, let's see how far we can go. And I think it's a really interesting dynamic because you're an only child too, right?
No, I have a brother and a sister.
Oh, you do? Okay. For
I'm
some reason, I was thinking you were an only child like me. So like, I never saw anybody else get their ass beat. So I was like,
well, see, I usually would get in trouble for stuff that I was doing to my brother and sister because I was the oldest. My father also used to make us stand on the porch. Like when it's cold out, he would say, go outside, stand on the porch for a couple of minutes and think about what you did. Also, real quick, I remember when I was trying to act hard, act tough all the time in like high school, he took me down to the bad neighborhood, middle of the night. He said, get out of the car.
Nuh-uh.
I said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not getting out here. He goes, you want to act tough? He goes, get out for a half hour. I'll be back in a half hour. See what happens down here. So you want to act tough? Go do it.
Oh, no.
And I remember I walked around for a while and I tried to get like little lit areas. And my parents are both from the city. So they know like, and he said, you want to act stupid? Go see if they want to, if the kids down here want to hang with you.
Yeah.
Could have been bad. He came back eventually, but yeah, listen, my parents were great parents. They taught me right from wrong. And I think I turned out okay, I guess. We both
you're not a criminal. You're not a bad person.
Not a drug addict.
I think that's ultimately what our parents probably hoped by some of the disciplinary action. And I've had people that have been bad their whole life that I know, and their parents did everything in their power. It wasn't enough. I mean,
you can't be too hard on them either, though. You have to have a good like balance. And I think my parents really did. And I think your parents did probably as well. So, all right. A lot of show today. Thank you for listening, everybody. Always a good variety hour with Kelly and I. I like Oklahoma State tonight. I'm going to hope for the desperation win. You are going to play the Cowboys of Wyoming. Good luck.
Yeah, it's gross. Plus 5.5. Good luck to us. We'll be back Wednesday.
Yep. I'll be here tomorrow. And we got Rico joining the show.
Everybody that couldn't read, Rico on Tuesday.
A lot of games tomorrow. We got more conference tournaments starting, Patriot League, Horizon, Sun Belt. And then we got some big games in the SEC, Big Ten, Mountain West, Big East, a lot of games. So we'll see you all then. Thank you for watching. Before you leave, if you're new around here, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the like button as well. Kelly, good to see you. We'll see you soon.
As always.
All right, everybody. Later.